Hi everybody, this is Jamal from Jayz Internet Solutions. Welcome to another episode of Jayz TV. The title of today's episode is called Web 2.0 and the Quality of Life. Okay, now Web 2.0 obviously I'm very passionate about, as you guys have sort of received from all of these episodes. And I'm also very passionate about having a good life, not working yourself to death, having an unenjoyable life and then sort of, ending your life in a bad state. So combining the two, I want to talk about that today. Some of you might know Anthony Robbins. He's a human behavioral specialist and he's an author as well. And he said on one of his talks that they've studied the amount of people who die from their first heart attack. Okay, so as we know, some people have one heart attack and some people die, some people don't die. Some people die from a second heart attack and some live, and the same from a third heart attack. And the study was done on people who actually died from their first heart attack, and they try to find out what was a common sort of problem with these people. And the problem that was sort of underlying and common between all those people is that they were unhappy in the workplace. Okay, so it does sort of make sense because a lot of our day is spent at work. A lot of our stress and anxiety is caused by work-related matters. Okay, and then Stephen Covey, who you all might know as well, who is the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is a bestseller for the last 20 years now. He says that he studied a century's worth of deathbed literature. Okay, so it's basically what people were talking about on their deathbed. Okay, and he says that the common factor is that nobody talked about work, nobody talked about how many hours they put in at the office, and everyone talked about family, they talked about relationships, and they talked about value that they gave to society. Okay, so looking at those two elements, I want to move on to another sort of component, which is hard work. Okay, now in this book, which we have mentioned before, called Small is the New Big by Seth Godin, he has a chapter in here about hard work. Okay, it's called A Brief History of Hard Work Adjusted for Risk. Now I'm not going to get into the risk part, but Seth Godin sort of draws a comparison between hard work today and hard work several decades ago. Okay, basically what he says is that decades ago, hard work was people, for example, in the fields, okay, sort of working on a farm and those sort of things from the early morning and until late in the day, and that's all they could do. That was hard work, hard labor. Okay, and then also, for example, people in a factory. Okay, you go early in the morning, you start work, and all you do is sort of you do whatever has to be done in that factory, and at the end of the day you're tired, and there's decades ago there was not much else you could do with your life. Okay, you'd come home, you'd have a meal, spend some time with the family, you'd go to bed, and the next day would be the same. Okay, so looking at all of those things, I want to bring your attention now to Web 2.0. Okay, Web 2.0 now allows us to change that whole paradigm. Okay, it's now possible for people to enjoy their work, right? For people to cash in on their passions, as it were. And it's even if someone has a day job. Okay, Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this a lot, that people who have a day job, they are now able to go home, and he says, play with the dog and then sort of get to work 7 p.m., 8 p.m. at night. And people are building companies during the evening. People are sort of making successful businesses online, and not necessarily online businesses, but they're using the web. They're using Web 2.0 technologies in order to sort of build businesses. Okay, and Web 2.0 and all these technologies that we have, cloud computing, social media, it allows us to enjoy our workday even much longer. Okay, so or much better. So we can now work at different places. Okay, so there's a banking net bank advert currently on TV, and this guy does his banking in a coffee shop or a restaurant, and he says this could be my office, And that's actually happening at the moment. Coffee shops and hotels and other sort of nice venues are becoming office places for people. So you see a lot of people with laptops, and they're not doing nothing, they're actually working. Okay, and I'm a witness to that, because I do that myself on a very regular basis. So Web 2.0 allows us to do much more, and it allows us to enjoy our lives much more, and it allows us all of these elements and possibilities that weren't available 20, 30 years ago. Back then, you had to work in the job that you had, and you couldn't create any other opportunity for yourself. Now it's different. Now we can create the opportunities for ourselves, and we can work globally. Okay, I mentioned about this in other episodes. And at the end, just to close off this episode, at the end of each episode of Jayz TV, I always say, crush it. Okay, now I get that from the title of a book by Gary Vaynerchuk called Crush It, which he launched in October 2009. And in this book, he talks about why now is the time to cash in on your passion. Okay, and he says that if you are in an industry or in a job that you are not happy with, that's not your passion, he says get out now, right? Because there are opportunities now to sort of work within your passion, and then work would be less stressful because you'd be doing what you love doing. There are some people who love what they're doing. For example, me and a lot of people in my industry, we always say that we're extremely lucky because every day of our work is enjoyable. We love what we do, and we're kind of lucky in that sense. So if you are watching this and you are in the industry that you don't want to be in, or you're in a work type of environment that you wouldn't want to be in, explore what's out there, explore what you can do. And you would not necessarily want to leave your full-time job right away, but you would want to start creating opportunities for yourself. Okay, so this week we're going to talk about a bit of these type of things about life and social media, and how Web 2.0 can help us sort of work better and live better. Okay, that's all for this episode. This is Jamal from Jayz Internet Solutions. Until we meet again, crush it.